Hey everybody, I hope everyone's doing well. I think Chapter 7, Leading and Managing a Differentiated Classroom, delivers a lot of important information for classroom teachers. I really enjoyed reading the beginning section with all the different excuses that were made up and how they were being addressed. I felt like I could really relate to those excuses being a classroom teacher. The first sentence that stuck out to me as being important was from page 140. Don't lower your expectations for students. I think that it's our job as teachers to set high expectations for our students in all areas of the classroom. If we lower our expectations, we're failing our students. Students may not have high expectations outside of the school setting at home, and they'll be more motivated to work hard when they know that someone believes in them and sets those high expectations. If you tell your student you expect one thing and then all of a sudden you change it to a lower expectation, they will feel that you have lost faith in their ability and they may even lose motivation. It's important that we lift our students to our expectations and encourage and cheer them on so that they stay motivated to end up meeting those expectations that we set for them. It even states in the standards for graduate teacher candidates under Standard 2E that teacher leaders encourage high expectations for all students. I also found the sentence, invest heavily in trying to understand the cause of a student's misbehavior from page 142. It stood out as being extremely important to me. I've learned from this through personal experience that there's always an underlying reason for a child's misbehavior, especially when it's really extreme. I've dealt with two students in two different schools that I've had to involve administration in, and it ended up that both of those students had extremely hard struggles that they were facing at home outside of school, which were the underlying reasons for their major misbehavior they were having in the classroom. Although it can be frustrating for sure, as a teacher, it's important to remember that children learn their behavior, and so there's obviously something that stimulates that behavior. Sometimes you can get them specific help that they need if you invest in finding out what's really going on. So through my personal experience, I was actually able to get one of my students a lot of help, which was great to see. Sometimes being an educator turns into a bigger role in a child's life than you can even imagine, and it's important to keep that in mind whenever we're dealing with students who we consider to be troublemakers. I also felt the sentence, pick your battles, from page 143 was important. You have to be an adult and are not at school to have constant arguments with your students. As challenging as it can be, it's important to keep the classroom environment as positive as possible, and choosing to focus on the positive instead of the negative all plays a big part in that. So choosing your battles with your students is a major important part of the classroom. Sometimes you're the only positive person in a child's day, and that's really sad to think, but it's true, and they need that positive light in their life. So it's just important that we try our very best to stay positive and focus on what that student's doing great versus what they're not doing so great with. It's important to remember that just like we I also, for the fourth sentence, I found the sentence, assessment should be differentiated, from page 146 to be important. It's important to remember that just like we differentiate instruction, we should also differentiate assessment as well. Every child learns differently, which means they test differently. Allowing students to demonstrate their understanding and a skill in more than one way is the most effective form of assessment. To be honest, something that I struggle with in my own classroom. I find myself giving the same test out a lot, and so that's something that I'm learning to, focus more on when I'm planning, so that I can test them in different ways and so that they can actually be successful with their assessment. Overall, this chapter was interesting to read and taught me a lot, and those were the four most important sentences that stood out to me. Hope everyone's doing great and have a good week.